Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Resurrected Winners You podcast. We've come back, Jack, with another Titanfall episode falling into your laps just in time for the mech revolution. If this is your first time listening to the show, think of us as a sort of video game book club podcast where we select a game, knee slide and wall run your way. Where we select a game, then Nissan. Knee slide and wall run our way to victory as we discuss the ins and outs oh my god, sorry. If this is your first time listening to the show, think of us as a sort of video game book club podcast where we select a game, then knee slide and wall run our way to victory as we discuss the ins and outs of said game over the course of about 90 minutes or so. This week, folks, if you've not read the title to the episode, we are here to discuss what is potentially, don't know if Alex would agree with me or not, one of the best FPS campaigns of all time in Titanfall 2. And with me to discuss this seminal game is the seminal man himself. Little side note, I actually googled seminal for some reason before I typed that into my notes, and I got two definitions. One, strongly influencing later developments, and two, relating to or denoting semen. So I'll leave the listeners up to decide which one they think I'm going with. This 7 times champion hails from Death Valley, is 6 foot 10 inches tall and 380 pounds of undead muscle. Over his career, he has gone under many names: Texas Red, Mean Mark, Dice Morgan, and even the Master of Pain. But today, he's simply to be known as Alex. How are you doing today, Alex?
Meowest regards to you, sir.
Lovely, thank you. I'm alright. I'm oddly flustered and tired, but apart from that, pretty
Who
good.
would have thought adding more dog to your life would make it worse? Not
yeah.
you, I'd imagine.
Not me. I didn't think there was that number, but we've hit that number. But It's fine.
Yeah. 3. There's nothing magic about 3 if it's related to dogs.
No, nothing magic about 3 when it's related to dogs. And I was trying to quickly think of something else that was horrific in 3s, but I didn't quite get there. Can you get there quicker than me?
Limb amputations.
Yeah, that would be bad. 3 limb amputations would be bad.
Left. Which one would you pick?
To be left with?
Yeah, right
hand, I reckon. Yeah. Because that's the one. Because like, if you're getting your limbs amputated, you're not going to be like, well, maybe you will. You'll get those like blades on your feet and be able to do some running. But for the most part, I think you're going to be doing a lot of sitting about. So if I use my right hand, I reckon for the most part I could just about play some games with a right hand.
Play Wii.
I could, yeah.
Yeah.
I could just go, get mad into the Wii. Just become that Wii man. Like Tony with his Wii porn.
Oh, right. I was thinking of Jackass for a minute.
Oh, yeah, that was
Wii man.
Yeah. Yeah, good one.
I mean, he's had his height amputated. Can I say that?
Yeah, well, you just have. You've said it. So,
I think Wee Man's awesome though, so I'm not knocking him.
I've got black friends. I'm not racist. Is that what that is?
No, I really like Wee. I've always liked Wee Man, but I mean, I'm pretty sure he makes fun of his height most of the time anyway.
Yeah, I feel like you don't go on a show like Jackass if you are sensitive about such things.
True. I argue he wouldn't have been on Jackass otherwise.
Possibly not.
Like Preston. Like, did they just have a really fat mate called Preston and were like, you should be in it as well? Or did they go for a casting call for really fat guys?
Yeah, well, there are a few of them. Well, I guess he's not on it anymore, but Bam's dad was a big old lad. And then there's Bam's dad's, was it his friend or his uncle? He was also a big lad, but I think both of them are...
Bam's dad's brother. Bam's dad's...
Both
Bam's
dead now?
dead.
Yeah.
Is his dad dead? Oh.
I just assumed. Maybe wrongly.
They got
was that
guy,
not?
Didn't they?
Was that not? Yeah, I don't know. I was going to say, was that not
really fat guy in the new Jackass? You seen the new Jackass?
Yeah.
Jackass.
Yeah.
That really fat guy.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him. I watched that film recently. I quite like it. I just zoom past anything with an animal in it. Really. Apart from that,
true.
Quite enjoy it.
Yeah.
There's no jackassery in Titanfall 2 though, Alex.
No, But as you know, speaking of animals, do we want to talk about cat ladies or?
Oh yeah, we've got to, don't we? We can't just leave that hanging, I suppose. So, ladies and gents, I'm a big fan of SteelSeries devices. Where my mouse is SteelSeries, I think. My keyboard is SteelSeries. My previous headset for my Xbox is SteelSeries, and my current also X headset was also SteelSeries. I just think they're really nice. They're really nice devices. They're probably a bit too expensive.
That deep into the whole of them.
Yeah, they're probably too expensive, but the stuff works and it's nice to use. So, for the most part, it works. Yeah, but I had a problem. So I got a new headset for my Xbox. It had a game DAC on it, which is like a little receiver that sits, and on the receiver you can do things like edit this, like update the sound. You can like change the type of sound you're getting, and you can also what do you do with the levels between voice and sound? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You can sort of just mess about with it, do all the things people can do with their normal headset by twiddling a wheel at the back. But this has got a screen on it, which makes it cool. Anyway, got that, and yeah, the wheel must have dirt in it or something, or be a little bit jammed, or have a fault in it, because I wasn't able to change the sound. Every time I tried to up or down the sound, it would just go full blast immediately, and I couldn't edit it at all. So, I got in touch with SteelSeries and said, "Look, your headset's not working properly." And they're like, "Okay, can you send us a video of the problem?" And I was like, "How do you send a video of sound not working properly?" So I put the headset on beside the game DAC and then twiddled the button, and it's like, it's going loud. Yeah. So then they sent it back and it's like, okay, here's some troubleshooting. And I was like, okay, at least they're engaging with it and helping me, because you have to go digging for their customer support stuff.
I hate that shit.
Yeah.
You have to do like modern times, like the actual contact part is hidden away behind a fucking AI bot or an FAQ. I don't want that shit.
Yeah.
My problem is unique. You've never had my problem, so fucking acknowledge that.
So yeah, he got back and he was like, here's your troubleshooting problems. And it was, I wonder if I can find the email quickly. I wonder if I won't have deleted it, because when I'm having like back and forth, I always keep them. Let's see if I can find the conversation. That was
so this was what, chat or an email?
This was over email.
Okay.
There doesn't seem to be a chat function that doesn't involve a bot, so I had to send them an email.
Do you ever really abuse them, or does that put you on some sort of list?
Well, I don't know. I try and stay.
I normally abuse the bots.
Oh, abuse the bots.
Yeah.
I usually just type in capitals, "I want to speak to a human," because I was stuck on. It's a little bit better these days, but back in the day, sort of automated phone services did not like Scottish accents. So you'd try and speak to them, and you would say like 2 tickets to see Batman at the cinema. I don't know, 2 tickets to see Batman, and it would be like, booking 2 tickets to see Cats, and I'd be like, no, Batman, and it would be like, and it just wouldn't understand what you're saying. So one time I was on the phone, and it was just getting it wrong all the time, and I shouted at it, "Let me speak to a human," and then it went, "Putting you through to an advisor," and it did it. So every time now I get in touch with every time now I come in contact with AI stuff, I instantly ask to speak to a human, because I'm wondering, because I'm like, maybe there's a secret in there that I've just stumbled across how to get through to people.
There's a life hack for you there, listener.
Yeah, exactly. Right, if I find it here. Right, so I said...
we used to... Cinema... Sorry, go on.
No, carry on.
No, I had nothing interesting to say.
Right, so basically, hello, I recently purchased Arctis Pro Wireless with Game DAC for Xbox. That's why I'm reading this, because I've said for Xbox. So I'm trying to use the volume knob on the Game DAC. The sound cuts out and then comes back in at full volume, whether I'm trying to turn the volume up or down. Essentially, the Game DAC is completely unusable. So
I've seen the box, and it has an Xbox logo on the box. So there is a very specific version for Xbox.
For Xbox, yeah. So yeah, he basically got in touch talking about just basically hard resetting the thing, which I already did. So basically, I know that basically these people, this one's called Finnick. Thank you, Finnick. these people are just reading off scripts, aren't they? They're not actually
copying and pasting them at this point.
Using their brains.
It's an email.
So yeah. Oh, actually, that's another thing they made me do. I forgot. They made me upload a video to YouTube and then send them a link to my YouTube video.
Sake.
So yeah, after I did my YouTube video for him, put on my best YouTube voice.
Did you use the winner as you like title screen as well?
I should have. I should have done some editing.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of my
David's broken headset. So basically what he's like, make sure your headset is connected via USB.
It's a wireless headset, isn't it?
Sorry. Yeah. There's a USB-C. If you pull off one of the cups, there's a USB-C port on it.
Right. Okay.
On your and I've got to use a rear USB port on my computer that's directly on my motherboard. If I'm using an analog or optical cable, please try switching this for this test so that it can see. Again, this is why it's obviously a script, because he's then talking about cables and stuff which mine doesn't have.
And
anyway,
he's talking about a motherboard which is not on an Xbox that you can access with the USB port.
Please use the color ports that are usually the USB 3.0 or 3.1 ports. If you're using a laptop, please try switching USB ports and consult your laptop documentation. Uninstall the SteelSeries engine. Wasn't even on my computer to start with, but I installed it for them and then uninstalled it for him.
Oh, you bless your heart! You're actually doing the steps.
In Windows, please go to the control panel sound. Set the SteelSeries headset as a default device under both playback and recording. If any other devices are active, please try disabling the other devices. If the issue still persists, even without Steelseries, see if it still persists even without the software installed. And then it makes me reinstall the bloody software. It was like,
but that doesn't like
still
that
didn't
pays
fix
no
it. Attention to what
that pays no heed to the actual problem of it's the iDAC thing, whatever you called it. The game DAC. It's got nothing to do with being the default. Or how does it fix a problem with a fucking piece of the hardware?
Yeah. I was like, I need to be polite. I know he's been a dumbass, but I need to be polite. So I just said, good afternoon. I just want to point out that this is on my Xbox, so I'm not sure that any of these troubleshooting tips are relevant. It's connected to the Xbox USB-C. To the Xbox USB-C connection, I have another headset I use on my PC. And he was like, thanks for chatting back about your Nova Pro Wireless X and for letting me know. Do you by any chance have a PC you can troubleshoot? I was like, yes. Thanks for getting back to me. Out of interest, can I ask why uninstalling SteelSeries engine on my PC would fix an issue with a headset on my Xbox? This seems like an odd fix. And he's like, well, it's worth a try, isn't it? And then he started like doing the...
No, it's not.
Getting me started with a replacement. So the replacement process is something apparently it seems to be normal these days.
For SteelSeries, it definitely is, according to Reddit when I looked at it for you.
But I had to take my headset, snap it, the right ear cup off, and then print off a picture of a QR code, and then send pictures of the snapped headset sitting next to the QR code in various different poses. Yeah, that's exactly. It's so weird.
Is it with the QR code in the park?
It's basically it.
Candlelit dinner with the QR code.
It was so daft. So I've actually, when I logged on to look for this, I just got an email saying that my order seems to be shipped and on its way. So hopefully it's fixed. Only took them. When was my first email that I sent to them? It was back in 28th of February, so it's only taken them, 2 weeks odd?
Yeah, but what was the most recent email you got before the one you've just seen? Which is the crux of why we're talking about this, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, sorry. The key to this whole conversation. Let's find that.
Set your ears.
So Finnick,
livid listener.
Finnick replies to every email with, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Thank you for glory, and then like a red diamond, and then he's got Finnick, the LGBTQ flag, he, him, his. What is the for glory thing? Do you know?
No. It seems that SteelSeries plays it very fast and loose with what they allow their staff to have as signatures. And I do not agree with it. But it gets worse, everybody.
I'm trying to find it now. It's totally lost. I've sent it to you in a message, so I can just look it up.
Yes, you
there,
have.
Can't I? So I got in touch with them basically because I'd sent the picture of my snapped up headset. I think on Friday I did it. And like I was saying to you earlier on, it was making me super nervous snapping up an expensive headset. So one that, as I pointed out to Steelies, was essentially functional. Like it had the wheels and stuff on the headset. All I couldn't use was the receiver.
Yeah.
So all they needed to do.
They didn't make you break that.
They didn't make me break that. So I
got in touch. That they would. You could buy another one, and then they'd refund you in a few days.
Yeah.
Like everyone's just got 350 quid to.
I'm not doing that. Because and actually, so that's what I did. I'm now remembering. Now I'm seeing this stuff. I got in touch with them because I got an email today saying, make sure you action your ticket because it's going to expire soon. I was like, I have. So I got in touch. I was like, can you just confirm that you've actually actioned what I've actioned, please? So I got a response from Finnick, who's gone, replaced by someone called Cat Lady.
He's gone off for glory.
He's gone off for glory.
Who was he replaced by?
A person called Cat Lady. Hi there. I can see that the shipment has been requested, but there's no shipping number added yet, so it's probably about to be shipped out. Meowest regards, Cat Lady.
And then a cat emoji.
That is horrific professionalism.
Is that on her CV? Well, at what point did this get breached? Hello, Colin. Nice to have you aboard the team. What would you like to be called today? I'd like to go with my usual handle of Cat Lady. And if I could put a cat emoji in my signature when dealing with customers of our business, that would be really
Cat
preferable.
Lady.
For fuck's sake, SteelSeries.
I understand that there's like, given the propensity of the gaming industry to be full of neckbeards, angry people, like there's a scenario in which you wouldn't use your real name.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be Cat Lady. You can just call yourself.
Just be a different name.
Finnick, for example, because that doesn't sound like a real name.
No, that's not a real name for sure. But and if you're dealing with people who are pissed off because their stuff is broken, don't call yourself Cat Lady because no one's going to take it. No one's going to believe that their problem is being taken seriously.
Yeah, exactly. I really feel like you've got this covered, Cat Lady. Thanks for your help.
Thanks for the meowest regards. I'll make sure to keep them with me at all
times. Meowest regards. I don't even like cats that much.
Fucking grow up. Right, then let's talk about video games before I turn 37.
Okay.
Oh, God.
So as we discussed, we're here to talk about Titanfall 2, which is the game we've played recently. You played it sort of... This all came about serendipitously, didn't it? Like you played this for your other podcast, Video Game Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
When you were talking about...
I didn't even need to play it, really. I just wanted to, remind myself of its glory.
Just relive...
I made it for glory,
you made it for glory. Yeah, and then because you play it, I have had this installed on my Xbox. Well, I had it installed on my Xbox One for years. Never played it. Because I was like, I need to get to this.
Copy? No.
No. And then it's when I got this Series X or NS and stuff, I've always had it installed as well because I'm like, it's a short campaign. I've heard it's good. I need to get to it. And then I heard you were playing it again. I was like, no, this is a sign. I have to play it.
Especially as I was giving you very loud signs that there's loads of Apex Legends references in it. You have to see them. You have to look at the G2 Scout and the R201 to blow your mind.
So yeah, but I started playing it and it did blow my mind. So I just kept playing it, and then we thought, well, we've both completed this recently, so why not pod about it? Because what is life unless you turn it into content? Yeah, Alex.
Well, exactly. It's just it's just cats and ladies otherwise.
Yeah.
What a shame that you've come to this game now and we never really got to... Well, no, we never ever got to enjoy the multiplayer together.
No,
because I had to play with bloody Joel, who was good at the game, to be fair.
Yeah, he really liked it. He was mega into this. He was banging on about this for a while, and there was a couple of modes, wasn't there? I didn't actually include it much in this because I haven't played it at all, so I thought it would be a bit.
I assume he's dead as well.
Probably. I know Joel's son played it until fairly recently, because he used to because like I was saying, there's a couple of modes. There's like a wave based sort of mode, is there not?
Oh, is there?
Yeah, I'm sure. Unless that's Titanfall 1 they added it to. But yeah, I'm sure there's like a wave-based mode where you're in your mech and you just basically have to fight off the hordes for as long as possible. And he used to like that mode. And then Joel used to do doing his was it LB for your grappling hook and spin about, which is Pathfinder's thing in Apex Legends, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got a tickly throat that I can't shake. Anyway, I was going to say, I assume because this game's quite old now that most people have played it, but I'll give you an introduction anyway. But given the sales figures, I don't think most people probably have played this game. So,
yeah, it's interesting to know what the uptake has been since it was on Game Pass. I don't know if that's counted in sales figures, but obviously at the time it was completely hamstrung by factors I'm assuming you're going to talk about.
By its release schedule, yes. So as an introduction, Titanfall 2 is a first-person shooter released on the 28th of October 2016. Date is important, folks. Keep that in mind. Developed by Respawn Entertainment and published by EA. As the name suggests, Titanfall 2 is a sequel to the critically acclaimed Titanfall and was released on PS4, PC, and the Xbox One consoles. I think it's probably...
Which I will just interject by saying that we played at an Eurogamer? We played that before it came out, the original Titanfall.
Did we?
We played an Xbox One before it came out at that event, and they had it set up in a massive multiplayer like LAN setup, and we both played some Titanfall 1 before it was released, before the console was released.
Oh, brilliant!
I don't know what year that would have been.
Wish I could remember that.
Sorry, what year did you just say?
2016.
Maybe 2015 then.
Possibly.
Can't think what that was. It must have been a Eurogamer Expo.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't have been Gamescom.
Unless I played it somewhere else.
That's maybe it.
The only one I've ever been to without you is EGX Rezzed, but that's an indie thing, so I don't think it was there. I played Alien Isolation at that and hated it. I didn't take the fucking hint and put a podcast out about it.
Is Rezzed not
PC? We definitely did play it together.
Expo. Did I make that up?
It was indie games, so mostly PC.
Okay.
But I played Hotline Miami at Rezzed on a PS Vita.
Oh, yes.
I remember that. And we played Broforce as well. And I got really excited about it, and then the PS4 version was garbage.
Yeah, that was. I remember that game. That was such a disappointment of a release. Because it was fun, and then it was just basically broken out of the box.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Well,
there's so many games like that. Titanfall 2 is not broken. I think it's probably fair to say that even if you haven't played the Titanfall series to date, chances are you've played a first-person shooter that has taken advantage of the fresh ground trodden by its pioneering series. I was actually thinking, before I continue, let's mark where I am.
Or you played a game by the creators of it.
Oh, almost certainly. Does Doom 2018 exist without... Is it Doom 2018? Do you think it exists
16.
without 20... Oh, so it does exist without this game.
No, it was definitely afterwards, I think. Well, when did this come out?
2016, 28th of October.
Yeah, the original Titanfall might be an answer.
True, because in my head, the Titanfall... In fact, what I'll do is I'll finish with this and then we'll come back to that, so put a pin in that. The head of the studio, Vince Zampella, made his name in the games industry after he founded Infinity Ward, famous for making games such as Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and 3 also, which in its day was itself an industry leader before he then left the company to go form Respawn Entertainment and eventually releasing Titanfall, Titanfall 2 and Apex Legends.
Was he not at Activision before Infinity Ward? Did he split off and do that, or did he have nothing to do with Activision before? I
don't know actually. Let's have a quick look. My understanding is that he founded Infinity Ward, which was then purchased by Activision.
Oh, okay.
He was removed from Activision quite unceremoniously. I remember there being news stories at the time of him being escorted from the building with security, and he wasn't even allowed to go back to his desk to pick stuff up. So it went pretty bad.
Left voluntarily to sort of break off in a new studio.
He may have done. I think this is maybe something.
Like that.
This is perhaps something that is like a cultural difference in the US to the UK. I think when you are either announced you're going to leave and people decide to put you on gardening leave or you're made redundant, you are just removed from the building. Which I'm not sure happens in the UK so much. But yeah, maybe it's just an American thing. So maybe it's not as dramatic as it sounds, or maybe it is. I don't know. So players that have played any of these games, Titanfall, Titanfall 2 or Apex Legends, will know that what these games do well is focus on making the simple yet core act of moving the character around the world an absolute joy. I may be going too far here, Alex, so tell me I'm speaking rubbish. I don't know, but for me, up to the release of these games, what made first-person games fun was largely the feel of the weapons and the action unfolding around the player on screen. So as long as the game was responsive and it was fun to shoot the weapons, and the first-person game sort of lived and died on the action intensity of the events unfolding around the player. The Titanfall series manages these things, but also makes it fun to just move around the environment, which I think is probably the key to me. Is there's a couple of things. There's the level, cause and effect, which we're going to come up to later on. But to me, this is the key thing about this game, and it's probably its biggest legacy on first-person shooters, is that these games are just there. It sounds silly now because we're 9 years released, 7 years out. So, but just being fun to move around, it was actually an achievement in itself, and it's something that probably games have tried to copy since.
I'm almost certain that Call of Duty Infinite Warfare came out after this, which was one of the first ones, or Advanced Warfare,
they almost
whatever
directly
it was.
Copied it, yeah.
Yeah, with the wall running and stuff, they properly copied Titanfall 2 with that.
Yeah.
100%.
Which was sort of taking the pin out, what we put a pin in earlier, which made me wonder, like, this sort of revolution of fun FPS gameplay made me wonder if there was any sort of at least tenuous tie to the Doom series revival. Like, did the developers look at that and then look back at what Doom did before and thought, oh yeah, it was actually fun to just blast around, let's sort of make a Doom game? Because to me, the Doom games are also just fun and to move around, but in a different way.
They're lightning fast.
Yeah.
Like, they are absolutely rapid to go and play. And I guess Quake and Unreal Tournament probably are two of the bigger influences on a game with movement in it as well. A lot of, the old rocket jumps was a huge thing. Team Fortress as well, I think.
Yeah.
Was big on that kind of movement. So there was groundwork laid, but for sure this I would suggest that they made it more accessible in the Titanfall games to have greater movement control without having to do anything too skill based, if that makes sense. Like, rocket jumping in Quake is not an easy thing to do, but it's what everybody talks about if they talk about playing Quake. So I think that level of movement was something that was only attainable by, like, the highest skill level player before, whereas Titanfall and games of its ilk made that better and more accessible for pros like us.
I think so.
Maybe Unreal.
Yeah, I think so. And I guess with the added thing to this as well is they switch it up. So again, I'm saying things that are obvious, but also, like, so they go from, to me, I don't know what you think about it. What did you have a preference to being in or out the mech? Because they're very different things, or are they just sort of different and equally fun in sort of diverging ways?
Yeah, I would say they are equally fun in different ways. Maybe the out of mech movement is more enjoyable for us because we've played a lot of Apex Legends, and that's what it feels like. So
that was like
been transposed into a campaign.
That was the interesting thing about when I loaded up Titanfall 2 is I found that I just instantly started playing it like Apex, and I was like running up the walls and stuff and just moving around the world really, really effectively instantly. And do you remember back to when you played this game first? Is it as intuitive as that? Or was it as intuitive as that? Or is that an impossible question to answer? Because, like I say, for me, it was just sort of slipping on the Apex boots again. But you perhaps learned that in a different order. You would have done, obviously, would have went Titanfall, then Apex.
I think the game does an excellent job of very quickly blasting you through a tutorial, getting used to the mechanics and how they work, and then with the way that you can have, if you just take a couple of seconds on most of the set pieces, that ghost pilot thing will then jump, run and run in front of you. So it does kind of show you techniques on how to utilize its mechanics.
I think it's
the early parts of the campaign, but I feel the same way you did. When I went back to play this for the Hall of Fame show, I was a little bit disappointed that you can't do the slide and jump thing that you can do in Apex to get that speed. But it felt like I put on a warm glove, didn't it?
It did.
Instantly understandable.
And to sort of cement what we're saying about it just being fun to move, they even start the game by just giving you an assault course to run through, which again thinks like it shows that they were just confident in what they were doing with their. That's
classic COD as well.
Oh yeah.
All the Modern Warfare original games had
even that goes right back to first Call of Duty, doesn't it? Because I've got a memory of playing the first Call of Duty, and you've got to throw a potato through a fake wooden wall instead of a grenade.
That may be Call of Duty 2, because I'm playing that at the moment for some reason, and that has that at the beginning.
Does it?
Throwing a potato, yeah. You're throwing potatoes at scarecrows or something.
I wonder if they do it twice.
Yeah, maybe.
I've just got a
I
memory.
imagine that's probably what they actually did in the war, to be fair.
Yeah,
although maybe certainly. Not in England, because they were, all the ladies were digging the potatoes or whatever it was they were doing in those posters.
Yeah.
Dig for Britain or whatever it was.
The other thing I kind of want to touch upon, it's something that we've already said, but I just want to sort of draw focus on it, is I will never be not impressed that Vince Zampella started two companies independently, and both times he sort of redefined the first person industry.
Absolutely.
It's just
is he not there anymore, right? He's left Respawn.
So he's now EA staff. So they have moved him, as far as I understand, he's less on Apex and Titanfall, Apex and Respawn, and more covering, because at some point they moved him across to the Battlefield series to try and it was during the complete mishandling of the most recent Battlefield game, and they basically moved him over to try and save it. I think unfortunately that game's unsavable. So
I think it must have been just like resigned acceptance. Like, fine, you clearly care more about this. I'll go fucking work on this then.
Yeah. I'll never not be disappointed by that Battlefield game. But yeah, it's what a brain. And this is the thing that I would love to know what he does day to day. Is he just good at hiring people? Is he a visionary? Because I was trying to look up his job title, and it just says founder. So like, how much day to day running? He's not a creative director. He's not a gameplay designer. He's known as founder and CEO. Yeah. So I just don't know. I'm amazed that he's found himself in these positions.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know if he had his roots in game development or anything, but I guess maybe he did.
He must have done.
Maybe he's just an idea man.
Let's see where he's. Well, I know. So I think he's got some roots in some
certainly
Star Wars games.
If you think about Japanese developers, it does tend to be that most of their high-up guys have originally been developers or coders or something along those lines. Like, if you look at Nintendo, like Gunpei Yokoi was the Game Boy designer who went quite high up in the company. Miyamoto was obviously a low-level programmer. So was Iwata, and he went on to be the president of Nintendo Japan or whatever it was, or the CEO, whatever his job was. I mean, Reggie wasn't, but he was just kicking ass and taking names. Whereas American companies, I'm not sure if they ever really need to do that kind of groundwork to get to that level of prestige in a company.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm looking up his biography here. So yeah, it just says Vince Zampella worked at several companies before he co-founded Infinity Ward with Jason West. Those companies included Atari, Panasonic, Sega, something called 2015 Inc. He co-founded Infinity Ward alongside Jason West and Grant Collier. In 2002, after working on the game Medal of Honor Allied Assault with the company 2015 Inc. Along with Jason West, Vince Zampella was fired by Activision in March 2010 due to allegations of contract breaches, insubordination and disputes over which party owned the Call of Duty series. and then he went off to make Respawn, and the rest is history, so they say. Is there anything else you want to touch on? We're going to move on to plot next. Is there anything else sort of you want to sort of have as an opening salvo? I think we're going to go deeper later on, but yeah, I kind of again want to reaffirm the way in which this game felt to move. We haven't really touched on the mech movement so much.
Mech is not necessarily the most accessible game mechanic. Certainly for a more Western focused audience, it's a very Japanese cultural.
Does it feel true to that
touchstone? I've played some of the Armored Core games, and they are very difficult and clunky to get used to. Whereas the movement for the mechs in Titanfall, they seem to simplify in that they've just made it almost like you're a chunky bloke running.
Yeah.
And then they've added like a little sort of a dash to propel yourself around for dodging mechanic, and then you've got your simple controls on your bumpers and your triggers.
I guess if
not too overcomplicated, and each one has its own. You can go deeper on individual loadouts, but again, a really just accessible and fun. Like in the first Titanfall, obviously, when a mech would drop down because you only had multiplayer in that one, so a mech's going to drop down when you've basically got yourself a kill streak to speed it up. I mean, they would drop eventually on a timer at all points so that everybody got the chance to get a Titan at some point in a game. But obviously, you sped it up if you get kills and kill streaks and things. So in the multiplayer, it's almost like more of a reward or a special treat. But in the campaign here, you're in the mech quite a lot, which, if it didn't feel good to play, would make the campaign almost totally useless. Or the whole premise of the game would be null and void.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a rough breakdown between mech and human gameplay split. I think you're probably on foot for the most part, maybe just over half. But whenever you fight a boss, you're always in your mech. I'm trying to, if I was going to be, when I guess this is a point in this podcast, but if I was going to try and be critical of the mech combat, I would say I think there's a bit of a disconnect between how the mech moves on screen, i.e. in a cutscene or when you're watching him in game, versus how he feels when you're controlling him. He's much more dynamic in cutscenes and stuff, I think, than
certainly
perhaps
feels
he
a
is.
lot more limited when you're in control of it.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of what I love about the gameplay when you're out of the mech is the sort of the speed and verticality of it. That seems like such a stock response, but I think in this instance it's probably quite true.
It's only the MO, I think, for the entire.
Exactly. I mean, it's not quite Doom level pace, but you're always moving. You're always quick. You're running faster than a normal human would. The melee really encourages you to keep going melee and move on, and then be shooting the guns, obviously. And then obviously the way the level design, the one we're going to get to, I think, then we're probably going to spend the most time on is obviously the time travel level. But even the one that jumps to my mind that made me realise that how intricately and smartly these levels are made is, I forget the level name, but it's the level where you're going through a sort of production plant that seems to be putting together like flat pack buildings almost, like, and you're going through the level and you can see these rooms getting slowly built as you go, and as these rooms are slowly built, there are moving platforms which you're jumping to and from, but they're also adding like stairs and walls and stuff that you can use to get around on top of that, and then you sort of end up in a finished room, and then the level flips on its side as these rooms are sort of vertically maneuvered up to the roof, I guess, of this really tall plant, and you realise that not only was the game designed as you were like really well as you were moving through and like using the walls and all the bits and pieces to jump around, but they had also designed it on its side so that when they flipped it, it was still a perfectly usable level, and you were using the stairs in a different way to climb up to the top of the building. And I just thought that blew my mind when I realised how intricate, I guess, these levels are, because you're flying through it at such pace that my brain doesn't have time to absorb what's happening.
Yeah.
And there's only the odd time where the game, I think we do touch upon it during our development discussion, but where they try and slow the player down and make them stop and think for a moment, and it's during those periods that I just was time and time again reminded about how almost flawlessly this game is designed. I think, almost.
It's almost like every level has a gimmick, which sounds like it's cheapening it, but it's not. It's more that every level has an extremely high level of focus on one core aspect of what you're going to be doing differently this time, which is what keeps moving through the campaigns feeling so fresh. It never really labors on anything. You don't have anything that you sort of collect and is then yours to utilize going forward. It's more, you're going to have this thing, and by the end of this level you're probably going to have thrown it away, or it's going to be broken or something, and you won't ever use it again. But did you have fun with it? Because we made sure that every interaction you had with this mechanic we gave you felt significant and felt thought out in a really intricate, as David said, way.
You're
sometimes it's to do with what you're getting in your arsenal, or sometimes it's to do with the way that the level is actually presented to you. And that one in the factory is amazing. I mean, it's literal level design. It's designing houses as a level, and then the level designs itself at the end for that Truman Show-esque sort of what's the word, like not scenario. What is it? It's like
it's just
simulation.
Yes, where you fight,
like the simulation fight where they break through the walls of the pod that you're in, so to speak.
You're right, and that's actually a point that I'd completely forgotten. Is you're right. Each level does have its own gimmick. Where like there's the, excuse me, sorry, I'm really struggling not to cough throughout this whole podcast. I'm trying to look through it, but it's giving me pilot helmets, which is annoying.
It's almost like it's got like a feeling of like a 3D Mario to it, almost. Like there's a Mario Galaxy level of world design to this, where it's like, oh, now you're going to go to this galaxy and it's got all this crazy shit going on. Like there's wind effects in this one, and this one's an ice one. It just feels very much like they separated each level out in that way and got somebody to think of, right, time travel, go. Think of all the things that we can do with that in a shooting scenario. Go, off you go. And then, there's other things later on that we'll get to.
Yes, exactly. I'm trying to think of the other one. So there's Into the Abyss, I think, is the level that I was playing. Anyway, that's the name of the level. So, let's give you a quick rundown of the plot. I said to Alex before we started recording this that we're not going to go deep in this because some people may find this interesting, but I don't.
There's not much of a plot to this. I'll be interested to know if you found anything that's moved forward into Apex Legends.
Possibly not. The gameplay, I mean, there will be the odd thing, but I know so little about the Apex Legends plot as well that I'm probably not going to be able to pick it up. The game's conflict takes place in the Frontier, which is a region of star systems far removed from the core systems where Earth is located. The Interstellar Manufacturing Corporation, or the IMC for short, is the Frontier militia battle for control of the Frontier militia the IMC and the Frontier, which is the Frontier militia, battle for control of the Frontier. The IMC seeks to exploit the Frontier's rich resources, regardless of the consequences for planetary environments and civilian populations, while the militia fight to expel the IMC and gain the Frontier's independence. So classic bad guys because they're bad. Oh, resources. Maybe this is a bit like Pocahontas / Avatar.
Bit fucking Dead Space as well, right?
Yeah.
We've done a whole 2 games about companies extracting shit from planets.
In the wake of the Battle of Demeter, the militia is on the offensive, battling for resource and control of the Frontier planets. Though weakened by the lack of reinforcements from the core systems because of the destruction of the refueling facility by James McAllen, the IMC is still a dominant fighting force, attempting to drive the militia out and put down any resistance to their control of the Frontier. The player, Jack Cooper, he's a rifleman in the militia. He aspires to become a Titan pilot and is receiving off-the-books training from Captain Ty Lastimosa. to prepare for his candidacy. The two are part of a militia force which attacks the IMC-held planet of Typhon. In the initial battle, the Apex Predators, a group of mercenaries led by Cuban Blisk and contracted by the leader of the IMC Science Division, General Marder, mortally wounds Lastimosa and incapacitates his Vanguard class Titan BT-7274. With his dying breath, Lastimosa transfers control of BT to Cooper. BT explains that Cooper has also inherited Lastimosa's mission, Special Operation 217, to rendezvous with Major Eli Anderson and assist in the completion of the original assignment. Anderson's last known position is at an IMC laboratory. BT and Cooper are forced to detour, first through a water reclamation facility, then a manufacturing plant, killing the Apex Predators, Kane and Ash, Apex nod along the way. Or I guess that's a Titanfall nod in Apex.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's kind of all I've got, because I thought that sort of sets the scene. That tells us why you are where you are. And then the rest of it is very, very classic video game. You're propelled through the game to achieve this mission. There's various setbacks, and then there's a final fight at the end. And that's kind of as far as it goes. The plot isn't overly deep, and I guess I don't even think it's a negative necessarily, because that's not what this game's about, and it's not what this game's shooting for. I don't know.
No, and I think they focused enough on the relationship between BT and Cooper to keep it grounded in a very sort of simple, spread apart aspect of the story that you can focus on in the moment to moment, because you're with BT a lot of the time. You're piloting BT, and everything that's going on around the two of them is this crazy, well, not even crazy, this sort of very basic, as you said, evil guys versus rebellion plot.
Yeah.
So I think focusing on the relationship between BT and Cooper was the smart way to do it, because it gives you more of a stake in the fight and something to actually care about on a more personal level than why are we fighting for whatever it is, this resources, I don't really give a shit. And the bad guys are just bad.
I was trying to think back and of memorable things about this game, and I think, like I said, I totally agree with what you're saying, and I think largely that the plot is quite forgettable. But one thing I did remember is that I quite enjoyed when you were going to have a boss fight and you were coming up against a member of this military corps for hire, because they would properly you would see them with their face open, and then it would be like freeze frame over them, and then their mech would close, and then it's getting ready for business. I actually did think and I'm not just saying this because she makes an appearance in Apex Legends, but I think Ash was one of my favourite fights that do take place. I don't know if you can remember that one. It's one of the few mech fights that I can remember had quite a focus on geometry as well as the mechs. I think a lot of the mech fights I can think of up to that point and even beyond, there would be pillars and posts that you could sort of use to get between each other. But this Ash one had different levels, and you were fighting in like a very hilly area as well. And I just liked that added to the frantic nature of the fight.
Yeah, because there's one of the last ones you do is in a very enclosed area, and then there's another one where you fight Schwarzenegger, and it's basically just in a wide open oil field, effectively.
Yeah.
So that one, I think both of us did in a matter of seconds, because he's just so exposed. He's got no cover or anything. So Ash is one. There's a reason Ash was the one that was, well, I was going to say she doesn't die, but I guess she must do. But there's a reason she's obviously put into Apex. I think that was the one that was most memorable, probably in terms of her visual appearance.
Visually, sound, surprised
she tries to be more of like a slightly more serious GLaDOS.
Yeah,
there's a bit of that. When obviously you've hacked their radio comms, and she's trying to talk some smack to you, but it's not quite, it's nowhere near as intentionally humorous as Portal is, but there's definitely an element of that to her, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. The one thing I did take note of, because I was thinking about like plot and story and what was important to this game, and like we were saying, that we didn't think the story was overly important, but I think one thing that is worth discussing for a bit is the Cooper and BT relationship, because I think for me that's where I think a lot of people will have memories of this game.
Yeah,
and that's the things that I'll live on. So I do have a wee bit of blurb here, so I'll quickly read that, and then you can you can sort of build on that and give me your thoughts as well. So, creating chemistry between BT and Cooper was obviously something that Respawn Entertainment had put a lot of focus on and tried to really hone and improve. So attempts to increase the chemistry between the duo. The two characters have opposite personalities, and this is deliberate. Jack is enthusiastic, where BT is robotic and calm. Before I continue my notes, this is one thing that I didn't write in my notes, I don't think, but it was one thing that they had considered doing was making Cooper a silent character like Gordon Freeman, but obviously they decided against that. Yeah, I think you and I would probably be in agreement with that. That's probably a good idea. I'm not overly into silent characters in 2023.
No, and they went quite the opposite way and almost giving you a little dialogue tree every now and again to. I don't know if that has any. Have you found out if that has any bearing on anything at all?
No.
Sometimes you were too busy getting into the gunfights. You didn't even respond at all to him. So I guess it doesn't do anything. I don't know what the point of it was, but yeah.
Cooper was difficult for the team to write since his personality may not align with the player's choices, like you're saying, or a vision of the character. While the team intentionally avoided making BT similar to characters like Optimus Prime or cute robots like Wall-E, they found BT's personality difficult to write also, as they had to find a balance between making him lovable partner and a 20-foot tall war machine. Early drafts of BT's scripts were deemed too bossy, and 5 writers took 5 months to rework them, apparently, to make BT more human. The team designed a large emotive eye so that players would know where the Titan is looking, and a small pair of robotic arms to allow it to interact with other characters in a more natural way. What do you think of the way BT is written? Do you like it? Do you like him?
Yeah.
Were you attached to him?
A lot. Yeah. I think they did make him feel a bit more human. I think it's it's a classic sort of warming to each other scenario. And they intentionally give Cooper sometimes like a more sassy or attitude laden piece of dialogue or a response that you can pick. But BT often either takes it at face value or doesn't pick up on any sarcasm that you're giving out. And
there's a couple times.
And for comedy effect, I thought that was quite a nice touch. His humor comes from a very mechanical binary personality that they've somehow made into slightly humorous jokes. It's a kind of a little bit like Drax in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, where he was very literal, again taking things at face value, very literal. And he would kind of point out the very obvious flaws in what somebody else was saying, and it would become funny because it's almost like he doesn't understand, and he's just going by literal meanings of things. So I think they did a really good job with that. I like Cooper as well. I think they're both pretty okay. The rest of it, the evil bad guys and their scene chewing is what it is. But I thought the relationship between these two was clearly what their focus was on.
Yes.
And it was the right thing to focus on, and I think it worked.
I think so. And it's often when I think about how movies and any kind of storytelling really is involved, it's one thing that I think, I don't know if I think this because I've sort of considered it and never really concluded my thoughts on it, but I often wondered why over the years video games I think the quality of writing in the video game industry has obviously ticked up quite significantly over the last 20 years, but I do wonder if there's a bit of the fact that video games traditionally, not so much now, but I'd say over sort of the lifetime of the video game industry, would traditionally tend to skew towards the big bad or the world-ending event, like Mass Effect. You're literally saving the universe. I think there's a lot of that in video games where you're trying to save everything. I mean, even games like Metal Gear Solid, you're trying to. I don't know what you're doing in that game, but there's a lot of nukes, which is like world destruction going on in that game.
Yeah, that'll do.
I think where video game stories are their strongest is when they maybe will have the big thing. So another example is The Last of Us. It's got the big world-ending event, but actually what's interesting is the relationship between Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
I think this game, in a way, tries to touch, I'm assuming it's deliberate, tries to touch on that in some way, because you're obviously taking part in this big galactic mission and you're a small part of this massive war effort, but actually the interesting bit is the developing relationship between Cooper and BT, and that ends up being what's I think would be important to the player by the end of the game.
You watch any war film, a critically acclaimed war film, it's going to be because of the interpersonal, emotional stories that they tell.
It's not the war
of the soldiers within it.
The war becomes a set piece, is sort of set dressing.
Yeah, it's a framing device, effectively. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think as well, considering the fact that Titanfall 1 had a, in inverted commas, campaign, which was just the multiplayer with people shouting
just listen
at
to
you
audio logs, isn't it? Yeah.
Almost impossible to follow anything at all. Really, like the most of afterthoughts. And the fact that they went out of their way to do all of this and even have the campaign that they did in this game is like a real about turn about what their principles were for what the game should be. Especially
considering the environment in which this game came out. It came out during the 2010s odds, so... that's the decade, isn't it? The 2010s. So this was when everybody was all about the multiplayer. Everybody was all about copying the Call of Duty style, and there was even talk during this entire period that they were going to release a Call of Duty game without a campaign. I mean, I know they eventually did it. I don't remember when that came out though.
Was that Black Ops 4?
Was it? Yeah. Yes, that's right. So it's interesting that they perhaps did that, and I wonder if they did that. Obviously, Vince Zampella's got his roots firmly in the Call of Duty franchise. I wonder if it was part of the sort of research and developing and marketing that they did while he was there. He then felt bold enough to go out and make us. It would have been a lower budget game just with the multiplayer, and then obviously it didn't work. I don't know. Maybe it did work. I was reading they had 11 million unique players on the first game. So it wasn't a flop, but they had
No, it was quite early in the Xbox's life. So it was a bit of a flagship franchise at that point for the Xbox One.
I get this. I'm going to jump on now because this is a perfect segue into what I've got written next. So we're going to go and talk about the sort of development and gameplay rolled into one here. This is quite a long section, so I'm just going to randomly stop at different points and try and stimulate some conversation because otherwise I'm just going to be talking for hours. So Titanfall had the first Titanfall game had low engagement with players post-release despite huge initial sales. Like I said, it was 11 million unique players. Fukuda, which is one of the designers, saw the dwindling size of the community and thought, or sort of his conclusion was it was due mainly to the game's lack of a single player campaign. Zampella confirmed the introduction of a single player campaign was intended to expand the multiplayer base. It is believed sorry. My type is rubbish because I rushed this. Zampella confirmed the introduction of a single-player campaign was intended to expand the player base, as it was believed this could make the overall package a bit more of a complete, cohesive thing. The team's vision for the campaign was to make it different from other first-person shooters, especially Call of Duty. It's reported that during the development phase, or the initial development phase of the game, because of where many of the staff had come from, because he did lift a lot of staff from Infinity Ward when he left, the game initially felt very, very similar to Call of Duty. So to try and fix this, they stopped development completely, and they decided to host game jams within the studio to encourage developers to create new designs and experiment with the tech they had available. So these jams essentially tasked developers not to follow traditional shooter campaigns, design conventions. Team members were free to build prototypes for it, for which they could then be integrated to form a coherent campaign. These prototypes were initially referred to as action blocks. They allowed the team to introduce ideas after ideas and just build and build and build. So I actually think this is maybe the first good jumping off point, which actually loops us back to one of our earlier conversations about how the game is essentially gimmick after gimmick after gimmick.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably why.
Yeah. It's like a real collaborative effort from individual parts of the studio, putting a bunch of ideas and then linking them together.
Yeah, and they do it very well, because I think...
Really do.
I don't know if I took this out or not, but there was a bit of chat about how, because of this, the game is obviously... The campaign was complete before the story was even written, essentially. So they basically had to go and knit a campaign into that. And I think,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know, it both confirms and explains, again, earlier conversations about how the story does feel quite tertiary to the experience. And actually,
yeah, it does.
Yeah, which it is, and it was through development, which I guess makes sense in this regard, explains it.
I mean, there would be such a disruption to the fun of this game if it told a story in any sort of, long and drawn out way with tons of cutscenes and backstory or anything like that. It needed to flow the way that it does. It rarely ever tries to stop you from having fun, which of course, the first Titanfall did as well by trying to tell you some fucking story while you're actually playing multiplayer. So it's like they did try and almost keep that mindset with this one, where it just, let's not stop the player from playing the game, or let's try and do that as little as possible. And if it does do that, it's usually for some kind of crazy set piece where a fucking robot's lobbing you onto a train or something.
I love those when he just would pick you up and throw you.
Yeah.
There's that set piece sort of at the end of the game where you're on the two moving ships. I just love that entire sequence. Yeah. That's a really, really fun sequence. So, as we're saying, these game blocks, as a result of the way that these game jams went, these game blocks are often independent of each other and had unique gameplay features. For instance, players would be time traveling in one level and assaulting Titans in the next. These blocks enabled the team to discover new ideas and work out the structure of the overall campaign. Internally, it was called 211, as every level consisted of two parts involving pilot combat, one part involving the pilot movement, puzzle solving, and one part involving Titan combat. Did I get that out properly? 211. The action blocks approach meant that Titanfall's gameplay was designed before the story, as we've just discussed. The team intended making the game similar to Half-Life series, where mystery takes center stage in the story, hooking players to continue exploring it was completing the campaign. As exploring it and completing the campaign. Portal apparently couldn't find anything to back this up, also influenced the game's design. One of the major components of the campaign is the interactions between Cooper and his Titan, BT-7274. This is described as a buddy story inspired by buddy cop films like Lethal Weapon, Beverly Hills Cop, and then he lists a bunch of animes like Gargantia and the Verdurous Planet. Have you heard of those?
No.
BT apparently stands for Buddy Titan, a name that the team allegedly didn't like, but it was insisted that it was used.
Don't worry, lads. Everybody in the UK thinks British Telecom, so...
Yeah, that is all I could hear when they were talking about BT. I was
having problems with BT. Come on, BT, we need to get moving. Yeah, fucking install my router, will you wankers?
Was it you that made a joke about BT being reliable?
Maybe.
While designing the game's single player, one of the team's goals was to keep the energy present in Titanfall's multiplayer mode. The team wanted to make the campaign more creative instead of simply having robots in it. Both the unique traits of the pilots and the Titans had to be used and expanded upon. Therefore, the team decided to create both intricate environments for pilots to traversal, as we've spoken about, and large open space for Titan combat, which we've also discussed. Instead of making it a corridor shooter, which was, I guess, also an option and kind of the thing for the time, that was basically, when you look at Modern Warfare, what that was. According to the gameplay designer Mohammed Alavi, this gave players greater control and freedom over the character's movement. The team focused a great deal on platforming, again, as we've sort of touched on, designed to further expand the use of the pilot movement. Many team members created action blocks dedicated to platforming, including ideas such as having players solve puzzles to find a new surface wall to run on. I want to actually touch on that. Did you get stuck like I got stuck? Or was that unique
times,
to me?
Yeah, where I got... Well, because I was trying to... When I was watching you play, I remember there was one level where you got stuck for a while, and I was sort of suggesting ways for you to go, but they were wrong. So... And I'd already played it. So, yeah, I definitely... It doesn't have, you know, the Uncharted. Here's a yellow bit of a windowsill for you to grab hold of.
Yeah.
Here's some fucking Lara Croft vision that just shows you all the shiny edges to climb up.
That's another thing that I find really interesting about game design is, like you're saying, the Lara Croft and Uncharted thing where they sort of guide the player. The other one that jumps to mind is Mirror's Edge. Basically, look for everything's quite white, look for the yellow, and just run at it.
Yeah. They must be just so scared of somebody like just getting stuck and putting it down and giving up.
Yeah.
And being too frustrated. There must be some like, what's the thing that they do when they
market research?
Test it. Yeah, market research, or
testing
product testing.
Probably,
yeah, where people just go, I don't know what I'm doing. Someone's pressing their fucking button in the focus group. That's it, in the focus groups. Like, I'm stuck. So for every time that happens, they must have somebody be like, fucking put a bloody shiny yellow windowsill on it. I'm fucking stuck. Hurry up. So kudos to them for not bowing to the kids in the fucking focus group.
Yeah, and I actually think, like, for the most part they get it right, and it was rare during the experience that I got lost. It was just the odd occasion that I got lost, and I think that was maybe down to my own stupidity, but also just because like I was saying, the design is so key to this game. And I think like if you were just putting massive yellow blocks on things and things like that, like it wouldn't fit and it wouldn't flow and it wouldn't look as nice as it does.
The flow is the key part.
Yeah. I think I don't even think that traversing and I wonder if this came up in product testing, is that if they stuck like certain coloured things or blocks and things to guide you, would that then dissuade players from exploring and using the movement organically? And I think getting lost a couple of times throughout the campaign is a worthwhile trade-off for me. Yeah,
you don't want to be given loads of tools for having fun and experimentation, and then telling people exactly how to use them and where to go. There's no objective. Oh, there is an objective marker, isn't there? You can press the back button, and it kind of shows you most of the time somewhere up in the air. Just go up there, climb up that bit. And I think the times where you do get stuck in the game are like in some of the moments that's already produced some level of downtime for it. Like it does a really good job of never really interrupting the flow of your movement, and a lot of the times it's almost like smoke and mirrors to make you think that you are thinking outside the box and doing something a bit more unique or off the beaten track. The power plant level we were talking about earlier, not the power plant, the production line level we were talking about earlier, that does a really good job of just making it look as if like, oh, what happens if I jump over to that little bit of house that's kind of hanging from the ceiling over there? But it's obviously where they want you to go, but it's just like you use your intuition that you've learned by that point to figure out what was in their mind. And it must be really difficult, as I said a few minutes ago, with focus groups and stuff, and then worrying that people are going to get stuck and not be able to get inside the head of the one specific person. In this case, lots of groups of specific people have individually developed by themselves. How are you going to get into what they want you to do and how they ran through that level? Whereas giving you these tools of like no fall damage, double jumps, occasionally allowing you, if you do get too stuck, have the little ghost guy run and show you where you should go.
Yeah, exactly.
It just makes everything feel just like really organic, that you just don't need to be pushed, and somehow you'll still find your way without too much prompting. And I thought really speaks to how well put together it was, despite it not being a corridor shooter, as you pointed out earlier.
I think it's spot on. I can't really add anything to that. The only thing that was jumped out at me when you were discussing that is imagining the telegraphing parts of the level. Imagine that on the production line level. It would look very odd because you would see it as you were, and it wouldn't. I mean, I don't know if you were, but when I realised the thing switched and it turned into this climbing level, it honestly blew my mind. And I'm glad that I was able to sort of discover that organically rather than see it coming, because we've played so many games over the years, it's rare to be surprised in that way, I think, these days.
100%.
So as we were discussing, a lot of these action blocks that were created, were dedicated to platforming sections, which also included areas such as having players solve puzzles to find a new surface wall to run on, and also a game mechanic that involved the Titan being able to throw the pilot so they could travel over long distances. Obviously, this concept was originally ditched, but the concept of throwing pilots was, well, I say, ultimately discarded from the gameplay and became part of the cinematic cutscene because the team had trouble implementing it due to its lack of interactivity. The game also features a variety of puzzles inspired by games like BioShock, apparently, and Half-Life, where players maintain a certain level of speed while solving puzzles. There are also puzzles which change the game's pace and require players to stop and think about a solution, which it certainly does.
I think if you give the player the chance to let BT throw them, like, anytime they want, you're going to have to do so much, like, protecting of the borders and the skyboxes and everything just to make it so you can't just break the game in every level.
Also,
you fucking Breath of the Wild it or whatever. People shooting themselves on doors across the entire map.
It's maybe not even fun ultimately either, because I could see, like, unless you're getting in and out of the mech, but like to me, like I'm envisioning you like moving the mech to a specific spot so that he can throw you, and that also doesn't sound very fun.
Yeah, but then it's just a button press then, isn't it? So yeah, that wouldn't work. And if it's too open ended, then you lose this careful shepherding of the player through the intended path. If every time you get stuck, you think, well, which direction of the fucking 360 degrees should this robot chuck me now? It would be it was the right thing to take that out.
The reason it's because we mentioned the game earlier, but the reason that in my mind that the only way that those sort of puzzles work is ones that, like a portal puzzle, for example, that requires you to do some setup, and then once you set up, then you execute. So i.e. like you're moving your things in the right place, or you're getting the bouncy gel in the right place, and then you've got to carry out the intricate stuff. Maybe that's the way you make that interesting, because starting, stopping, but then that with the throwing, you can only have one mech in one place. So the having the throwing part doesn't create a dynamic flowing puzzle in that way. So not for me, I don't think. The next thing I think it's probably time to discuss is Effect and Cause, which is maybe some of the best moments in first person shooter history. That is like an unbelievable level.
I think it's a level you could replay multiple times and get better at using the tricks that it allows you to.
Yeah. I've got a wee blurb here, and then I'm going to just take the reins off and let you go wild in this level, because I know how much you spoke about this to me. Apparently there's a documentary company called X2, and they made a documentary about the wait a minute, let me figure out what wait a minute, I've written
I need to go pee while you do that.
Yeah, you do that. I've written these words down and not figured out what they are. Oh, it's a fucking Iron Man film.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. you get your shirt from KDB today?
Nope, not arrived.
I did.
Not yet. But you opted for Robocop instead.
Oh, I'll save it for the Gears pod.
So we're all matchy-matchy.
Yeah.
So the movie X-Men 2 is X2, and the character within it, Nightcrawler, as well as the documentary series A Life After People, which I have seen, and it's actually quite good. Life After People is a documentary series, or it's a television series, sorry, in which scientists, mechanical engineers, and other experts, according to Wikipedia, speculate about what might happen or become of planet Earth if humanity suddenly disappeared. And then
I remember that.
Yeah. So that basically, so to finish my sentence, that I wrote down all these words and never actually absorbed what they were. But X2, the movie, the character within that movie, Nightcrawler, in the documentary series Life After People, inspired the most acclaimed level of effect and cause. It's initially an action block created by designer Jake Keating involving time travel. He had the idea before the development of Titanfall. He experimented it with one of Titanfall's multiplayer maps. The action block was warmly welcomed by the entire development team, with some feeling that it had the potential to be the main feature through the entire game rather than being confined to one level. However, Keaton insisted, apparently, on limiting its use to one level so that the mechanic would not become boring for players. To make the level, the team created 2 building computer models, one with one on top of the other. As the player switches timelines, they are teleported from one building to another. Apparently, it was the landmark level the team was looking for, and it did not need demanding technology. However, the added level created more work for the team, since the 2 buildings, each with different features and characteristics, needed to be built twice. So essentially the 2 buildings exist independently, and when you press the button it transports you to the other version of the same building, which is a little
sort
bit
of an advancement of that Shenmue thing.
Exactly where I was going with that.
Okay, so you do it.
The ultimate, well, you go, because it was you that showed me that.
Well, no, you go. You've obviously got notes about it. I'll butcher it otherwise.
Well, we've basically finished. The next we're moving on to sales and release.
Oh, yeah. So what was it? So the mirrors in the original Shenmue were not actually mirrors. They were just a hole, effectively, in a wall where you're just seeing an exact copy of the same room on the other side.
I'm surprised that that's less development than faking a mirror. Sort of less RAM. Is that the right word?
Yeah, well, because what confused me is
essentially doubling
nothing
up
in the room's going to move anyway.
Yeah.
So because it said we only wanted to focus on the only mirror image is Ryu and any other human. Well, that's the only thing that's going to move in a normal mirror, isn't it? I mean, there's nothing moving in our houses right now except us.
I guess viewing angles maybe is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're effectively just kind of looking at the room at a different angle, aren't you, rather than in a mirror? Maybe that's what all mirrors are, and we just don't realise.
Maybe. I did tell you I had a cat that attempted
just designed rooms on the other... Oh, yeah, go on.
I had a cat that for we got him. It was my grand's cat, and then she moved to a house that she couldn't have a pet in. So we took the cat, and for weeks he would sit and look at the mirror, until one day he got brave enough to try and jump through the mirror into the other room. Splattered himself against the mirror and never tried it again.
Yeah. Cassie has become very obsessed with mirrors at this point.
Is she trying to get into the mirror universe as well?
No, she just
Stranger
loves looking
Things
at
yet,
herself.
because she's not going to like it in there.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, no, she's just obsessed. She just stands in front of the mirror and just does things in front of it and loves seeing whatever it is that she's doing happening in front of her. And she turns and looks at you. It's like, are you seeing this shit? It's like, yes, twice. You're in front of a mirror. Like she's got a little rocking, well, it's not a rocking horse, but it's like a rocking elephant. And we have it in the corner of her room. And every time she wants to go on it, she pulls it all the way out and places it directly in, like straight on with the mirror so she can just look at herself. Yeah, check me out.
It sounds like something a Japanese horror movie.
A little bit.
Have you checked her for spirals?
Maybe not yet. Not yet. If she ever notices the spirals on me, then she'll maybe adopt that in her life. Who knows?
Maybe in big trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was going to say that...
Right, we haven't said enough about effect and cause, because it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah. It is such a good level. It is so good. Essentially, like I was saying, you get this device that allows you to time shift. And you're going through like abandoned, destroyed version of this building. You push a button and then you're zapped to this period where it's just filled with people and events and things happening. And do you know the thing I love the most about it is how... I don't know how they've done it. There must be a way to do it. But how realistically confused the enemies are while you're phasing in and out of the different levels, because like you'll hear them shouting each other like he's over there and stuff like that, and how's he doing this, and like you'll come in where no one can see and you can hear them discussing about an intruder in the building that appears to have some sort of advanced technology. It just feels really, really coherent in a way that I'm impressed with.
It's one thing to have wonky AI that's like stupid. It's another thing to make intentionally stupid AI in a clever way. Yet they still managed it. Because
so good.
they, like you say, they're always like shitting themselves and running around panicking, and it's so clever. I love the fact as well that the game like ramps up the use of it as you go along. So before you actually get the device, it's doing it anyway. And it's kind of, there are a couple of scenarios where things will appear in front of you, almost like you have to time it like a moving platform in a Mario game or whatever, in times with these time shifts that go on without you having control of it. Or you'll be in a room and all of a sudden people will be shooting you and then they'll disappear and you think, oh shit, I can move, I can go to where they were. And then obviously you've got these little blue kind of ghostly icons that get left where the people were standing. There's like almost like a trace of their, I don't know, a reality or whatever it is, allowing you to reposition yourself while still seeing where they're going to be when you come back in time. So there are moments where you're actually getting to use that without controlling it. But once you get full control, then the gloves are off, and it's trying to figure out the coolest way to like outsmart the enemies with time travel is just such a fun idea. And then all the puzzles they do on top of that.
Yeah, the puzzle that jumps out at me is one that I wasn't even sure if I was going the right way. It's where you've got a glass floor and there's a fire.
Yeah.
And you've got to sort of drop yourself into the fire, but then zap yourself back into the other building before you get burnt by the fire, so that you can get through a door, which is also closed in one of the other. It's just
you've got to haven't you got to make there's a floor, isn't there? And then if you get rid of the floor, then there's fire below you, and then you've got to effectively drop through the floor and then make the floor appear above your head to get rid of the fire.
Yeah.
And obviously there's the fan one as well, where you're going through a giant fan chute with spinning blades there that you've got to switch on and off on the fly as you're falling potentially to your death. And again, fire at the bottom of that as well.
I also think the end of this level is, I was going to say underrated, but it's because the rest of the level is so good, it doesn't really get spoken about how like utterly chaotic it is, and then you end up in like the frozen time area where you're like walking towards like as a big explosion. You can like see everyone like frozen in space. It's so well done, really well done. The whole level, and like even because they're in Apex Legends as well. Those animals,
the prowlers.
Yeah. They kicked my ass a few times, and like sometimes you're changing. Or at least I found that I was changing reality so that I could just get a bit of a rest, so that I could then sort of reload and come back again.
I think that's a perfectly valid and intended tactic to use. Like if they overwhelm you, get rid of them. And move away. I didn't see you struggle, because there is one room in that level where it has the two realities both have shit going on in them at the same time. So you've got the soldiers in one and prowlers in the other. You seem to manage to maneuver that quite nicely. Like you were really in a flow of, you never did what I did, which is flick back to the fucking present and there's a prowler's arsehole in your face. You never seemed to struggle with that. You were really like on it and in the zone, but I just kept messing it up and almost got annoyed at myself for it's like a stealth game. Like I did it wrong. I fucking did it wrong. I need to do the time travel better to look cooler and be a proper time traveling hitman here. I didn't do it right. I'd love to be able to play it like multiple times in a row just to do a bit like the optimal run of it, or see.
It's actually something I should have done, is gone looking for people, because like I went and watched people doing the assault course, and it is some people that are good at the assault course is ridiculous. I bet you there's some mental videos about people doing this level. I also want to call out. I don't think he listens to this podcast, but I want to call Joel out on making me go reload the game to go back and listen to that man's speech at the end of this level, and it was rubbish.
Okay, good. I thought you meant you'd heard it again, and now you're.
No, he told me it was mind blowing, and I went back. I was like, "Why? This is a waste of time. You just wasted about 3 minutes of my life." Thank you.
Yeah, I think
nothing.
even Joel then kind of admitted that it wasn't quite as good as he remembered.
Poor lad. Yeah. Poor lad. Do you think it was the right decision to make it like the rest of my gimmick level? I think probably. I'd like to see maybe some more levels like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. I wouldn't want to have it.
It left me wanting more, but
it really
do I want
did.
6 hours of it?
That's a sign of something good, and it's not exactly like the rest of the game is worse without having the time loop thing in it. And I guess they all have their own action blocks that do their own things afterwards, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But maybe if they did it slightly later on, and then you've got that, moving forward.
Yeah.
To like play out the last couple of levels with it once you've picked it up, but then I guess you'd be some kind of like wizard that would, you'd be able to control the universe if you had that technology for the rest of your life. Nobody could do anything about you. You'd be absolutely lethal. So I guess, it's probably a good thing it breaks. Otherwise, Cooper's going to be some kind of time-traveling warlord demon.
Before we move on to sales and release, what do you think about the one thing?
The episode.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to touch upon that I've actually forgotten to mention is how you felt when they, spoilers, killed BT at the end. And they give you the false death as well, where you think he's done, and then you slot him into a new one, and then he sort of sacrifices himself.
Yeah, I thought it's still like him, but in a different chassis, effectively, isn't it?
Yeah. I didn't really mind that they did that. I thought I'd be more upset about BT dying than I was. I don't know why it didn't really affect me so much. Maybe it's because it was kind of in and out. I don't know. Do you remember how you felt about it? So obviously I'm asking you to remember 7 years ago now at this point, I guess.
Well, no, I only played it like a month ago.
Was that your first time?
No, I played it, but I played it the first time around as well. Yeah, sorry, yeah. I don't know. I guess maybe the second time around, as I guess you're alluding to, is that I obviously knew he wasn't going to be actually dead, but it's kind of weird to feel that way about a robot.
Yeah. Johnny Five did it.
At no point ever thought, I never thought he was actually going to get killed.
Yeah. The only other thing that I think probably jumps out to me is we haven't really touched on much of the weapons. The weapons are really fun to use. If you've played Apex Legends, you can see where they came from. The flatline is awesome. It's way better than this game than it is in Apex, I think.
As is the L-Star, as we found out. The L-Star is ridiculous.
It's so good.
Eviscerates them into a cloud of blood.
The other gun...
great.
The gun that I think it was in the first Titanfall from what I remember, but I'd forgotten it from existence until I played it again. Was that pistol that you get when you're running away?
Yeah. So
what a gun. Because that just lets you concentrate on manoeuvring about.
Yeah. That gun in the original game was obviously fucking OP and pissed people off because it's basically a win button.
Yeah.
Where it just like homes in and it like targets everybody for you. So
Soldier 76, right?
Enjoy yourself.
Alt.
Yeah. So I don't think it's either like not in the multiplayer of 2 or it's like a special weapon that you have to find somewhere.
Right, okay.
So the picking it up in this game is like a real like fist pumping fans moment, like, oh, we got the gun again kind of thing, because you don't get it at any point in the game until it's a very specific set piece towards the end, and you are just flying through and mowing folk down. Love that gun. Just a really clever
so much fun
kit. Yeah,
especially like I say, given the traversal of the levels, It allows you to be shooting people and feeling like a badass while you're concentrating on moving through the game. Really, really good gun.
In a game that, you know, is really like the time to kill enemies is pretty low, so you can zip through it really quickly and just like be popping people off with like snap aiming and shooting and stuff. But that just takes it to a whole new level. It's so exhilarating to get hold of that thing. Like I say, especially as they make it like a set piece of, here you go, have fun with it. You remember this, right? And then off you go. Oh, really cool.
Talking weapons, the other thing we haven't touched on are the loadouts for the Titans. Did you have a favourite? I liked. There was only really useful in one specific instance towards the end of the game, but I quite liked the sniper one.
Really think the sniper one's very cool. Yeah. I like the one that had the jetpack on, which I think you basically used probably 50-50 with the first loadout. Mm-hmm. The Scorcher one, or whatever it's called, is okay. I keep yawning now. I like the fact that it has like the caustic gas canisters in it that you can then shoot with the fire gun. It makes like a lake of fire. But it was just a bit too slow. So I think Joel and I agreed while we were watching you stream in the chat. The one where you've got to like shoot 3 times to like build that little lock meter, and then you can fire your rocket lock on. We both enjoyed that one the most. So I'd say probably that one. Or the Ashes loadout's quite fun in terms of the shotgun and the fact that your melee turns into a sword. I tried it
and then didn't stick with it.
Yeah, I didn't really like the Y button, which was like almost like a wraith phase in and out sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's supposed to be like Ashes when she's cutting a rift. It's kind of like you just move through a rift, which I guess is the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's little elements like that to the Titan loadouts that they then clearly was like, right, what are we going to have for special abilities in Apex Legends? Or what about the Titan that fires gas cannon? Like, I love seeing that, and in the context of where it got repurposed in Apex. That's the most fun thing about it. And as you said, picking up guns like the Flatline and it being really useful, or the Mastiff. What else did they didn't have a wingman in this one, did they? They had like an earlier version of the longbow.
The G
triple take.
You said the G7, they've got a version of that, don't they?
Yeah, which is really good. It's the G2, isn't it? That one's quite fun.
Oh, the double take, Volt. That's right.
The Volt's really good in this game.
The Volt,
He's in Apex.
Yeah.
And the L-Star. Every time I saw an L-Star, just straight on it.
Yeah.
And of course the R201. Classic.
Yeah. Yep. Very, very well done. I think the guns that are much like most of this game are a real highlight. There's not really any gun that I disliked using. Obviously I had my favourites, but there wasn't really anything I disliked using. I think if I was to go back and play again, I do wish I had sort of experimented with the Titan loadouts a bit more. Like you're saying, I certainly did sort of settle into my groove and just stick with those until that sniper thing came along near the end, in which I switched to that. And then there's a bit later on where that becomes useless, where you start having a bit close quarter fights, and then
the last fight especially. Yeah, definitely. But as I said, I really like the movement of the Titans. I like the ones that had jetpacks on them. And I love the holding up a shield that just sucks in all the bullets. You just then fire back at people. Kind of reminds me of the sort of shotgun shield thing from Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. That I really loved. That, you know, it had like a big pink sort of shield, and you let go and it just fire a shotgun blast of everything you collected.
Obviously, Respawn went on to make a Star Wars game, Jedi Survivor, is it called, or something like that?
Jedi Fallen Order, yeah.
That's the one.
And of course, the sequel for that is coming out this year.
That catching the bullets like that is very Jedi-ish. That's what made that jump into my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, a really quality game, and it's a shame that we're probably not going to get a sequel to this.
Well, it's been cancelled, hasn't it? Recently. Whatever it was going to be, the mix of Titanfall and Apex Legends single player experience.
Probably, it's probably a bit of a threefold attack here, isn't it? I mean, like, the success of Apex is probably disincentivized investment in another game. The way in which Titanfall 2 was handled by EA was also poor, and I suspect,
incredibly poor,
given the way that EA have been going around cancelling projects just now. They're doing a bit of a Ubisoft and struggling a little bit somewhere behind the scenes to try and massage their accounts to look better now we're coming towards end of year.
Yeah. I can't remember the exact dates of it, but it's, if you look around, it's like Battlefield 1 was obviously released by EA, I believe, the week, either the week of or the week after Titanfall 2 came out, and then both of those were released the week before Call of Duty, or like the timeline is something like Titanfall, Battlefield, Call of Duty in the space of a 2-week period, and it's such poor planning from EA for their own franchise, the fact that they did that to them.
I hate to be that guy, but I find it so disheartening how poorly EA, or how poor a record EA have, or like track record of handling studios properly over the decades. Like we've just completed 2 Dead Space games, and we're not bothering to go into the third because EA mishandled that series, and then went ahead and that studio doesn't exist anymore. Same with BioWare. They bought BioWare. The Mass Effect 3 was completely mishandled, and then the Mass Effect series has been mishandled since. Same with this. Like,
actually, it's almost a bit like we should be more annoyed that the company that made Dead Space, the incredible games that we've just played, like made that what it is, has been dissolved and killed off, and then EA's just like put its fucking head on a stick and paraded it through the town for everybody.
Yeah.
Look, lads. Dead Space. This is lovely, isn't it? Yeah, it was, but you fucking ruined it and killed the studio, and now you're banking on it. You're banking off it again. You fucking like soulless.
That's the
bastards.
thing that I guess that I'm sort of coming, that I've now that I've changed my mind over in the last sort of 10 seconds. Because you used to always think, well, BioWare's dead, so well. But then the founders of BioWare, I would think, oh, they'll move on and start something else, but they didn't. They left the industry, and then you've got the EA guy. Yeah, I think they make one of them certainly makes beer now. There's a guy that
better than NFTs, I guess.
Callisto Protocol is another example of like the people that made Dead Space left and obviously weren't able to recapture that lightning in a bottle.
No.
And then, well, I don't know what happens to Respawn now, especially now Vince Zampella seems to be, as we discussed, sucked up into the behemoth of EA. Is this a slow death of that studio as well? Probably.
Well, if they're making the sequel to the Star Wars thing, I assume not. They'll just keep drawing in the Apex money and...
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens.
Maybe not, I don't know.
We'll see what happens with that game, but like, who's on it? Vince Zampella's not, because he's on Battlefield now, sort of mopping up that mess.
He should feel ashamed of himself for doing that as well. Because Battlefield is the reason that his baby has been strangled in the cot or whatever, smothered in the cot.
Yeah.
And realistically, like I would take Titanfall, a Titanfall campaign 11 times out of 10 over a Battlefield one.
Yeah. Battlefield is so wrecked now that I've got no interest in that series at all. And
this is such a special, like one-of-a-kind shooter that, as you rightly said at the beginning, alongside Doom 2016, those 2 games are the best shooters that have been made for about 20 years.
Yeah.
If not longer. And Doom has gone a little bit like up its own arse. They went too far with Eternal. It became too bloated and yeah. And this one's just been completely killed off. Even in the last sort of month or so, they've cancelled whatever they were going to do. Like they were going to make an Apex Legends single player with Titanfall elements. For fuck's sake, why is that not going to be a thing?
Yeah, how good would that have been?
So upsetting.
Which leads us on to sales and release. So Electronic Arts expected the game to sell approximately 9 to 10 million units in its first year of release. However, financial analysts predicted the game's sales would be substantially disappointing due to EA's decision to release the game in late October, a period between the launch of EA's own Battlefield 1 and Activision Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. So I did open in another tab here. Let's get to that. So Call of Duty Infinite Warfare was released on the 4th of November 2016. Titanfall was released, as we discussed, on the 28th of October 2016. And Battlefield 1 was released on the 21st of October 2016. So they took what was at the time the 2 biggest franchises, biggest sort of all-killing things, in which games that weren't even first-person shooters used to run away from the release date of these games.
Oh, they pushed them to the fucking January to get out of its way.
To get out of the way of these games. So what EA's decision was to do was to just slop it right alongside these games and have
in the middle of them.
It was the best one, but it also didn't have a decade of brand recognition behind it.
Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable arrogance from them to do that.
Exactly.
Or just like really high level incompetence. Just
it's got to be
have
incompetence.
A marketing campaign and release window and actually give it time to shine on its own merits. Because if you're expecting the sales figures of that, which they clearly did because A, the first one sold a lot, and B, this was now multi-platform. It wasn't an Xbox exclusive anymore. But to then hamper it that much, it got barely any marketing because you spent all your marketing time and budget on fucking Battlefield.
Battlefield 1 as well. But remember they released the Battlefield onesie you could buy. And then they had to wind that back and apologise. Like they do. Probably a screenshot of a text edit on a phone, like people like to do on Twitter. Anyway,
that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah. Despite that, these releasing these games alongside Call of Duty and Battlefield, EA expressed no concern about the release window as they felt that the player base apparently of Battlefield 1 and Titanfall 2 would not overlap, which is absolutely ridiculous. The game was on release the fourth best-selling retail game in the UK in its first week of release, behind Battlefield 1, The Elder Scrolls Skyrim Special Edition, and FIFA 17. Its first week sales only reached a quarter of the launch week sales of Titanfall, despite Titanfall 2 being a multi-platform release, which is horrific. Digital sales for the game were also down, only reaching a quarter of its predecessor's sales. According to NPD, the game was the 9th best-selling game of October 2016 and the 5th best-selling game of November 2016. In their earnings call for the third quarter of 2017 fiscal year, EA stated that the game sales fell below expectations. However, EA COO and CFO Blake Jorgensen went on to say the company was pleased with the positive reviews the game received and expected it to have strong sales into the next fiscal year. According to Zampella, Titanfall 2 sold well and was successful, but it could have sold better. In January 2017, the financial firm Morgan Stanley estimated that the game has sold 4 million units. The game's release on Steam in June 2020 has helped reinvigorate the player base somewhat, but not fully. How to Kill a Game 101 by EA. Yeah. It's such a shame because, like I say, this game is still thought of fondly. It was and is better than both of those games.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely swamped with no support, no help, not given the air it needs. New franchises need air to breathe.
Yeah.
And that's not.
And you're EA, you should be able to do that.
They should know. Yeah, they should be able to do that, and they should know that. They've got at that time they had Battlefield money. They could have just pushed it for 6 months.
They're always going to have FIFA and Madden money.
Exactly. So. Well, FIFA 17 did.
Yeah. They had three of the 4 top-selling games of the time.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. Really, yeah. It's just so upsetting because more of this is like sorely missing from the current gaming landscape.
Yes, hopefully.
Even the storytelling of it, as we brought out earlier. You think of how many games. Like if this game came out now, I would imagine it would have dialogue in it that's kind of like Forspoken or Guardians of the Galaxy. It's just going to be quippy bullshit.
Yeah, it'll be. It'll be
Saints Row.
It'll be what's his face, the pilot zipping through time, and then it'll pause and he'll go, "I bet you're wondering how I got here."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would suck nowadays. Yeah, I feel. We don't need to tell anybody who's played the game how great it is because everybody should have fond memories of this.
There's no one that's played this game
special
that I've encountered that thinks it's bad.
Yeah.
Have you anything else before we bring it home, Alex? I think we've covered it.
I think we have.
And that's it, folks. We've got another one in the bag. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please subscribe to us on a podcast feed of choice and consider leaving us a review. It really does help. Neither Alex nor I get paid for this, so we get our egos boosted by watching that tiny little listener count tick ever upward. And what helps, that is a nice 5-star review from you guys. If and why.
Also, Fams21 on Twitter.
Yes.
Hello, mate. Thanks for listening. Nice to meet you. Glad to have you with us.
Yes,
Sent us some nice messages on Twitter. It's very much appreciated.
Yes, thank you very much. If and why would you? You would rather look at our ruddy, gaunt, and radiation-marked faces. Don't know why I wrote that. I was obviously in a bit of a haze when I was writing that. While you listen to us,
radiation sickness, I think.
While you listen to us yammer on, you can also head over to our YouTube channel, A Winner Is You Podcast, where you will get a podcast likely late, but still there nevertheless. Emails are also a thing we have, so if you have something to say, maybe you think Titanfall 2 actually sucks, or maybe even better, you have some questions, then please go ahead and get in touch. Our email address is awinnerisupod@gmail.com. Finally, you can also keep up to date with the latest goings on here at A Winner Is You Towers by following us on Twitter at WinnerIsYouPod, or give either myself or Alex a follow at DavidSmiley1 and at SuperThrillix respectively, where you can hear about the other stuff we're getting up to. Perhaps seeing my mind get blown by the realization that the Pokemon Company is trying to hire someone with NFT experience in 2023, or the trials and the trials and tribulations of Alex's love for Spurs and hate for Conte. Will he go to the next game, or is his "I'm not going back till Conte is no longer manager" stance holding firm? You'll have to follow him to find out. Alex,
2 away games and an international break. There's time for me to heal.
There's time for you to heal, and there's time for them to find you on Twitter and give you a follow.
And for him to be sacked.
Exactly. Alex, have you any other business, or are we climbing aboard the last train home for the evening?
The only other business is to let everybody know that our next podcast is going to be in a certain country. A Donkey Kong country.
Hell yes. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I think it was I was living in my girlfriend's flat in town when I last played this on my Switch, and I got to, is it like the world that is covered in pollution? There's like spilt oil canisters and stuff. That's where I got
with
to.
The on and off lights.
Yes, that's the one.
Is that one? Yeah.
Yeah. I the other memory I've got is absolutely struggling through the snow level barrel blasting parts.
Yeah.
So we've got those to look forward to. I guess you can probably follow us on Twitch while we muddle through these things.
Yeah, and then Resident Evil 4 after that, baby.
And on that bombshell, I've been David, he has been Alex, and we have been at Winners You. Later, folks.
Keep gaming. Well, you changed your sign off.
It wasn't until after I'd finished saying